Hello, hello, hello. Are we on air? Welcome to the Royal Ontario Museum's world famous now Google Plus Hangouts here in the Shad Gallery of Biodiversity. I'm going to give you a bit of an update and some plugs, but very quick. I'd like to introduce our two amazing guests today. Quickly first here, my friend, colleague, 15-year vet, Neil Osborne, ILCP photographer, and our guest of the hour, Mr. Paul Nicklen, Canadian wildlife photographer. And give me a second and I'll get back to the conversation.
It's great to be here. Very excited.
So, louder. So as you know, this is very casual. Brian and I are going to chat. There's a studio audience here who are laughing hysterically at me right now. There's also, I want to give a huge shout out because St. Vincent de Paul is a grade 4 school here in Toronto, and I bet you they're screaming right now because they are following us on Google Plus right now, and you can too follow us on Google Plus and get right online and ask questions of Paul and Neil and myself throughout the half an hour. Again, we're going to be chatting for about 25 minutes. We're going to talk about wildlife photography. We're going to talk about the Arctic. We're going to talk about leopard seals. We're going to talk about what it means to get within this close of a leopard seal. To contribute today, the hashtag on Twitter is AskRom. And another hashtag that's really important for everyone to keep in mind throughout today's conversation and for the next 3 months is a hashtag ROM-WPY. ROM Biodiversity, the Center for Biodiversity, which I'm the managing director of here. We are hosting the North American premiere of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest, which is arguably, and I'm going to let Paul weigh in on this, a contest that shows the best wildlife photos on the planet and some of the best wildlife photographers on the planet. So it'll be at the ROM opening on November 22nd, and it will run through until March 23rd. So, let's start there, Mr. 2012 overall winner of the WPY exhibit.
We all get lucky once in a while.
Tell us what it was like to enter that contest. Tell us what it's like to be a conservation photographer, and what's the business like? How difficult is it to be?
Those are, and that's a 2-hour question right there. I mean, it's to enter WPY is a real pain. I mean, it takes up an entire day of your life. And quite often you get no feedback. You know, you might get a blind list or you don't get anything. But sometimes, I mean, the year I won, I had 12 images win. 2 won first prizes in categories, and another 2 won, I think, a runner-up and then an honorable mention. And when you win the first, they go enter, like, I think out of 13 images, 1 is selected as the overall winner. So you just don't know how it's going to go. I mean, I was sitting deep in my chair with a glass of wine, ready to applaud the winner, because there was no hint that I had won. In 2012, but it's what I loved about it is it's, you know, photography is changing. I'd say 10 years ago we were a stock photography world. Everybody was shooting stock to make money,
yeah. And
the stock business was booming, and you could make a good living selling photo stock. If somebody went into Mangles and took a great shot of a polar bear, 1,000 photographers went and copied it, and what a waste. And I think what because the stock industry is slowing down, it's dying, stock sales, people are learning that the new way of the future of photography is storytelling, visual storytelling, and I think you start to see that in the WPY now. It's not just a bunch of pretty pictures of the same stuff. It's ecosystems, it's biodiversity, and that's how it's all connected it is. And I think I've won like 15 times within the WPY system, which is great because they've given me a voice now. They asked me to be the keynote speaker. I get to speak about storytelling, and I was even influential, like with Catherine Rand from National Geographic, able to weigh in and say, you guys need a storytelling category. You know, just shooting pretty pictures is almost, it's not a waste. It's good to have the images. But if you're taking from the animals, you're taking from the ecosystems, you need to give back.
Yeah.
And I think it's an incredible opportunity. I think so WPY is a very worthwhile exercise.
So it really catapulted your career?
It helped. I mean, I'd say National Geographic catapulted my career as far as when I do a story for National Geographic, you reach 40 million people. And then you're on the speaker lecture tour, and then you have a little more cachet when you show up to events, and then with National Geographic, you constantly have the microphone. I think shooting stories at National Geographic is great. You're obviously winning the why. Because like, okay, you work at National Geographic, which is great, but if you win this as well, it means you're shooting individually strong. I'm much more proud of my 6 awards for World Press Photo in Amsterdam, in Holland, because it's storytelling. It's a storytelling category. Your best 12 images that tell a passionate story that a jury looks at, and they're all they're a storytelling jury. That's what I'm proud of. WPY was cool with.
So that's a great segue. And I'm going to try and bring Neil into this conversation now. And the question really is, and I'll go to Neil first, is there room for more good storytellers out there, or is it a saturated market? And again, Neil Osborne, him and I go back 15 years. He's the director of a program here at the Ron called Environmental Visual Communication. Let's have a shout out to EVC. Neil gives a better elevator pitch than me, but basically it's a program that's building the next cohort of storytellers, and we'd love to be able to tell these kids that they could one day become Paul Nicklen. What do you think?
So first of all, welcome to the grade 4 class. It's really nice of you guys to join us. We're really lucky to have Paul stop by the museum today. Storytelling, we're always going to need storytellers, Dave, and I think Paul's a great example of this, where we're going to always need to take the still photograph to another level, and I think we're always going to need storytelling, I'm sure.
So there's more stories than there are storytellers.
Without a doubt.
Stories are everywhere. I mean, I meet a lot of young photographers, and I was the same way. I was starting, I'm like, all the good stories, you sort of have that first feeling, and then as you get going into journalism and you start telling stories, and that's the hardest part of teaching a photographer. How do you tell a story? That's what's great about you guys. I mean, you're teaching them that skill, and it's a really tough skill. But stories are absolutely everywhere. They're in your backyard, and as our planet is changing in many ways for the worse right now, ecosystems are being altered. We're losing amphibians, reptiles, polar bears, sea ice. It's all. I mean, as this planet degrades on a daily basis, the current state of our world, stories are becoming more relevant, more urgent, more timely, more important, and the visuals are absolutely everywhere. Again, to go around and follow each other, taking pretty pictures of a polar bear, great, but and that's just the beautiful thing about storytelling is you can shoot 10 pretty pictures of. I can shoot 10 pretty pictures of a penguin, but I can say, because of the loss of sea ice in Antarctica, that's all you have to do. You have to take one picture or make a statement and tie it to those pictures. You have to trick people. You lure them into your stories.
I've got one great piece here that I think is just going to allow us to nail this point home. Ryan, can we quickly go to a video? This is a video of Paul, I think, down in the Antarctic with a leopard seal on the topic of storytelling.
Who's Paul? Can you stop moving? Because I can't see, and then you've got no way back.
He's going to try and show a video.
Okay, who's Paul?
Paul Nicklen is the photographer in Living. He's giving his lectures at World Cups and Hall. He's giving 2 lectures there until his last
There's no star. I want the zombies one. I want that one. What? What? This is 7. Where? Whoops.
So, if you want to ask a question,
I want to ask, why does a policeman say transparent? Oh, that's transparent hair.
transparent hair and blacks.
You know how you can tell, Gaia? Because their nose is black.
And that's
So their eyelids.
So, you two, if you're not going to pay attention to the video, then I'll just send you back to the test.
Signed up. I have 3,000.
Okay, we're back on here talking about Paul's enormous Twitter account,
Yeah.
but his lack of tweeting. How do you reconcile that?
I'm shooting, man. I mean, I never apologize for being in the field making images. It's just what I do, and I'm trying. I mean, I think I'm up to 100,000 followers on my Instagram, which is good.
Yeah.
You know, building that up and trying to learn to tweet more. But if I'm busy shooting and that's getting in the way of social media, then I don't beat myself up for it.
So speak a bit about Christina, your partner, the manager. What does it take to create, you know, and sorry if this is cliche, but the Paul Nicklen experience? Like, how big is the team?
The team is small, and I mean, I've worked with big teams, and I like to be nimble on my feet, move quickly, whether that's in the field or in business. I don't want to have a big machine that I have to move along. I'd rather have, so Christina, you know, my girlfriend, my partner, we're tightly aligned in our efforts. She's sponsored by Sony, so she's getting all her gear. You know, I get some sponsorships with CCAM products, and that's fine. And then, you know, it just makes it easy and simple, and you're always moving forward. Christina she founded and ran International League of Conservation Photographers, and she turned it into this great, big, moving beast. And then now she and I have stepped aside from that, and we're still involved. ILCP is still a great thing, but now we're trying to go back to being small. It was too big. We're trying to manage 100 photographers in one room and make everybody happy. And then so now we're small again. It's just she and I, and we're talking to other partners. We've created something called Sea Legacy, and it's trying to bring the oceans to everybody because not everyone's going to see the oceans. We need to take people to below that thin blue line and through photography as well as the ocean and how we can control behavior, ultimately creating effective areas.
Okay, so Sea Legacy is new. Can you give us a little bit more background on what it is, how people can get involved?
It's so new that we're just launching it this week. Yeah, I think
you saw it here first.
Yeah. So there's many parts to a Sea Legacy. One part is walking with photographers like LCP, like a raid.
Yeah.
Very similar, but we're going to have donor funding in place. If there is an oil spill or a natural disaster like the Philippines or Sandy, you know, that we have.
You guys are there.
Yeah, you don't. That's not the time to start writing proposals, and that's when I used to do that. You're supposed to be in the field that night with great photographers above and below, aerials, and you have a multimedia team, and then we align ourselves with partners. Like I won the NRDC Biogen Visionary Award in New York, and now we created a partnership with them because of it. And so we share our pictures for free with our partners. There's nothing about money and nothing slowing down the process. This is the story. Here's the images. Here are the assets. Boom, exploded to the world that night. Okay. And it's all free.
Neil, how can we get ILCP, EVC, and other emerging visual communicating groups involved more? We collaborate.
I mean, for me, it comes back to storytelling, and so what I'm trying to do with my own work and through collaborations with people like Paul and the ILCP, the museum, how do we repurpose, how do we repackage, how do we take these really authentic stories that need to be told and get them in front of new audiences. And traditional journalistic practices don't necessarily work as much as they used to, and they're not as effective as they used to be. And so repurposing the content, repackaging, redesigning it, collaboration, I think this is the next phase of communicating environmental messages.
Awesome. So is there anyone that we know of in the field right now, for example, in the Philippines?
No, I don't know of anybody. You know, it's.
That's a great idea.
I mean, of course, Reuters will be there. You know, the AP help. I mean, all the news stations will be there, and they'll all be
Taking
winning.
stock photos, not necessarily stories.
Right, and they're in their newspaper. They're there that day, and then gone the next day. You need someone to go in and do a massive coverage and share that with everybody, and have the underlying theme of the effects. And it's not, you know, everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, Philippines, what a disaster! Let's give $50, pat yourself on the back, take a Band-Aid on it, and talk about it." No, you need a team addressing the underlying issue of climate change. You know. Building worse weather patterns, just a changing planet, and that's what we have to just keep connecting with.
Okay, so quick updates from everybody. We're here, Google, hanging out with Paul Nicklen, Neil Osborne. I'm Dave Ireland. I'm the Managing Director of the Center for Biodiversity here at the Royal Ontario Museum. And you're in the Earth Ranger studio right now within the Shad Gallery of Biodiversity. You can come on down right now. You got to pay admission to get into the room. Highly support. And you could be in our live studio audience, or like St. Vincent de Paul. You can be hanging out with us on Google+. You can watch on YouTube. You can watch on our website. And you can follow along on Twitter and Instagram by using the hashtag AskRom. Again, we're here trying to raise awareness around environmental visual communication, wildlife photography, and supporting our own upcoming exhibition, the premiere of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year contest at the ROM, starting on November 22nd. So let's switch gears a little bit, Paul. We're in a museum. When was the last time you were in a museum before today?
It's been a little while.
How long?
I was in London recently. I know when I won the London thing, I got special pass and I just poked around for a whole day and I loved it.
It's a loaded question, and feel free to ask him for help on this one. But what role do you think a natural history museum, taxonomists, phylogeneticists, evolutionary biologists, our own collection, 6 million strong, a lot of stories. What role can we play
He's right there.
in what you're doing?
I mean, obviously it comes down to storytelling. It comes down to showing it's one roof that puts all these people and all these like you just listed, all under one roof. And it shows, I mean, it comes down to one word, biodiversity. What we've lost, what we are going to lose, what we need to save. And I think a place like this gives you the foundation to be able to talk about these issues. And often, no offense, scientists often, when I was a biologist, I worked with scientists. Sometimes the better the scientist, the worse the communicator. You know, they have a hard time in expressing themselves, but they're left brain thinkers, they're geniuses. The right brain and creating visuals and arts and weaving a story and being a raconteur, that's not a part of who they are. You need to bring those together. And by having a place like ROM and this incredible showcase of biodiversity, you have all the talents coming together. You've got the left brain thinkers, the people who are willing to sit there and identify every insect and say, okay, well, these are the species we've lost because of this. We're going to lose half the amphibians and reptiles on the planet. And then you have the photographers, you have the storytellers, you have the communicators, you have the journalists. They have the yous with your great personality reaching out to your supporters, and it all comes together. Creates a package. Creates a package of learning, education, and inspiration.
We got that on tape, right?
Team effort.
Yes.
Team effort.
You want to plug into that one, Neil?
For me, I mean, it's very much this opportunity. We get people like Paul coming through this, and it's a place, it's a context where we can continue the dialogue. There's close to over 6 million people in this major international urban setting here in Toronto, and so if we can continue the dialogue in a city center like this, I mean, we can share messages much more easily.
Awesome. Well, that was a great plug. Thank you so much. Because right now, in our world, natural history museums, we're finding it harder and harder to prove our relevance to the various stakeholders out there. And we need to show relevance for funding reasons, for support reasons, to reasons to door. And I think visual communication is going to help us a long way. Thanks for that plug. I think I want to move now. I want to question from anybody else, but I want to move to the art. You mentioned it briefly, the Philippines. I know I read 2 articles today, one to Toronto-based Popular Press, who were afraid to make a connection between this super typhoon and climate change. Interesting. You've been to the Arctic? You've been to the Arctic a lot.
Lived there all my life.
Lived there all your life. So tell us first what it was like growing up in
It was an unbelievable experience. I mean, we've become very much a PDA culture. You know, you're on your iPad. When you're on your iPad, you're on your iPhone. When you don't have those, you're on your computer. Then, I'm on an assignment in Hawaii, and everybody's sitting on the beach in the morning with their iPhones. And there's dolphins jumping out there, and they're like testing something. It just is fascinating to me. So I was lucky to grow up in an environment where we didn't even have a telephone. We didn't have radio, we didn't have computers, we didn't have television, we didn't have anything. So I spent all of my time outside being connected to this environment, and I didn't realize at the time as being a kid that I was learning all the skills of survival, being cold, building snow shelters, hunting, traveling, that would allow me to do the work I do today. So a great experience.
How did that happen? Just for my benefit and everyone else, how did you end up with that skill?
Mom was a school teacher, and my dad was a heavy-duty mechanic, and they went for a year of adventure, and they ended up staying, I think, 10 years, and I ended up staying another 20 years beyond that after they left. So
you stayed when they left?
Yeah. I went to university, became a biologist, came back, and started working on polar bears and different species, and then I realized being a biologist was ineffective. I needed to become a journalist who could bridge the gap between the science that I was doing that I didn't enjoy and the public. And by reaching like National Geographic, now you tell that story to 40 million people rather than fighting within the government over a little data set of paper, over numbers that were being effectively missed.
You have family, friends, connections still up there in Baffin Island in the Arctic?
I have a couple of friends. Yeah, no, I'm still very connected here. There's that book, Polar Obsession, which is my journey through the Arctic and Antarctica, and why that whole ecosystem is so connected. If we lose ice, we stand to lose the Arctic and Antarctica. Ice is like the soil in a garden. You can't grow a garden without soil. You can't have species existing in these cold regions without the foundation of ice. And we're going to lose that ice in the next 4 to 10 years. So the urgency of telling these stories now, you tell people over and over, we're going to lose ice. So what? People are like, what is that? Why am I going to alter my life to save some ice? Well, if we lose ice, we stand to lose everything. And if we can't protect polar bears and all the sexy characters make fun of it, ultimately can we protect ourselves, save ourselves? And that's what I'm trying to drive into people who want to change everything.
So the Arctic is your primary focus for the next while as well, then?
With Sea Legacy, we're going to do a big coffee table book with the monster and the Arctic green polar regions will be the initial focus. But then we're going to cover all the oceans over the next 20 years.
And that's why you were in Hawaii recently?
That's Hawaii. An assignment that I was trying to get out of with National Geographic, but I've agreed to do it, and now that I'm doing it, I'm loving it. It's connecting the Hawaiian culture to the ocean. And it's
Surfers.
Like surfing, but shot from underwater. It's like the revival of the Hawaiian culture. Yeah, but it's actually.
Why would you not want to do that?
Because it's taken me away from biodiversity. It's taken me away from wildlife and animals and things that are really being affected. But it's actually been a very interesting.
So we just launched an exhibit called C14 Climate is Culture. You can't disentangle science and culture when it comes to climate change.
Absolutely not.
So we also put David Suzuki on trial.
Okay.
So let me just set this up really quickly. The ROM plays host to very difficult conversations, but we're not advocates for one solution only. So we put the exhibit upstairs to talk about climate change and talk about the issues. And we hosted this event, the trial of David Suzuki, to put one solution out there and let our audience consider it. But we're not really in a position to advocate for one solution over another. But we do ask the question of our guests: is there a solution? What's the solution to climate change?
Massive global behavioral change. We think about love, we think about our families, we think about money, thousands of times. But to turn your lights off once a year for an hour, or that was even my reference. I talked with Roy Thompson Hall last night. We have Remembrance Day. We give, I think Canada especially, we give thanks once a year to remember our soldiers. But I think we give thanks for our freedom every day. And it's the same with the environment. We realize that we have this beautiful environment around us, and we give thanks every day. But to see it dwindle the way it is. And to see who we're voting for, and seeing, especially Toronto, who are we voting for to be our leaders? We have to start thinking about this stuff on the same level as we think about everything else, because this foundation is breaking down underneath us while we're sitting here addressing everything that is going to crumble because of this problem. And to realize that, and obviously, forever.
In a nutshell, I think it's empathy. If I could sum it up in just a brief word or a few seconds, it's empathy.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
So moving forward here at the ROM, we're considering expanding the environmental visual communication program, or finding a way that this program that takes students and teaches them to be better storytellers, find a way to make it sustainable over the longer term. We just tried something for a couple of years, piloted it, and it worked. But if we're going to sustain this at the museum and even grow it at the museum, and I'm going to start with Neil on this one. How do we take the EDC program and the idea of teaching the next generation to be good storytellers to the next level?
I have a series of answers for these sorts of questions depending on who we're talking to. And what first came to mind is it begins with our host, so the collaborators who we're starting to partner with. So everyone from the folks here at the museum who've been very receptive to the EDC program. And then I think in any given 6 months, we have close to 20 guest lecturers walk through the halls here. People like Paul and Christina who joined us last year, just as an example. And so it starts with collaboration as far as I'm concerned. When I talk about this conversation, for me it's about amplification. How do we tell good stories on bigger scales? How do we amplify it? And so we're not going to do that alone. And so it's going to have to be partnerships, and I'm even starting to question how we collaborate with corporations. Corporations are really good at their messaging. They're really good at branding. They're really good at identity. Why don't we do that? We've got the same tools. We've got the same ammunition. Why doesn't the environmental sector do that as well? And we can't. We have the same tools as they do. So for me, it starts with collaboration, and then what we continue to talk about with the students here in the program is let's also raise our standards of quality as well. And it's presumptuous to some, but I think the environmental sector needs better communicators. It's a generalization because there's some pretty amazing people out there, but I think we could be better and more effective. Storytelling is going to be at the root, but we also have to brand and we have to be more strategic.
I think it's an evolution that's happening very quickly. Just when I used to do lectures even 10 years ago, to even say I love the environment, I care about nature, I care about biodiversity, you had to be wearing a tie-dye T-shirt and you had to be driving a beat-up microbus, smoking a bunch of weed and saying I care, man. And so it was very polarizing. You're either a hip or a hate.
Yeah.
And so now you realize that. Yeah. But you realize there are very. Even all these people all along. It used to be strange to care about the environment. Now it's becoming, it used to be cool to smoke. I mean, give me a break. Now it's becoming very cool to care about the environment, to the point where you can't afford not to care about the environment. And so you're getting the best minds, the best voices, the best speakers, the brightest people in the world focusing on the environment, and it's becoming a very hip, cool thing that we have to move forward with.
You're sort of missing out if you're not on board, I think.
So it kind of sounds like you're taking an intern with someone.
Sure. Yeah, no.
Hey, you heard it here.
Well, Sea Legacy, we're looking for help. We're looking for interns. We're just talking about that today. We need help with websites. We need help with multimedia. We need help with getting messages out there. We're not this elite club group. We need help. My job is in the field producing visuals. We need people supporting us around that.
And Sea Legacy again is based in California.
No, it's based in Canada, British Columbia.
Okay. So you've seen her in Vancouver Island.
She's not a resident yet. She's working on it.
Okay.
But she comes in and out, and so it can be based in the U.S., but it's
He got it!
Ryan, we've got 2 minutes left. Again, this has been a Google Plus Hangout here at the prom. Talking with Paul Nicklen and Neil Osborne.
The students at St. Vincent de Paul have a question for you guys. So they've typed it in through the chat, so you guys can't see it. But basically, they want to know how cold does it really get in the Arctic? What's the coldest temperatures ever recorded? They also want to know why polar bears have clear fur. So can you guys help them out with that?
Sure. I mean,
The cold ones for you.
the cold ones for me, the coldest I've ever experienced, not the coldest temperature, I've had minus 52 Celsius. The coldest working I've ever had is I never experienced warmer than minus 46 for 10 days straight of work. I was working on a snow machine. Bolts were breaking like metal was snapping under the load. I mean, so that's cold. And then when you take that cold and then you immerse yourself in water that's minus 1 degree Celsius, and then come out of that water, and the only thing you have to do to warm up is eat raw seal meat and crawl into a sleeping bag. So that becomes an overall cold experience.
Sounds awesome.
And kids, I know your teacher, Brennan. He's a great friend of ours and a great teacher. I'll tease the answer to the polar bear one by saying that the polar bear's skin is actually black. And I'm going to challenge Brennan to do a full lesson on polar bear behavior, ecology, and ability to adaptively change to changing Earth. There you go, Brennan. 2:30. We like to keep these Google Hangouts pretty much on time, Paul. I could talk to you all day.
It's been great. Well, we'll talk more about it.
Yep. we're heading back to see the invertebrate zoology collection here at the ROM with Neil and Paul. Believe it or not, I think it's over 1 million specimens here at the Royal Ontario Museum's invertebrate zoology collection. Everything from freshwater mussels to marine invertebrates to everything. So that's where we're heading.
Just talk about the
the
show, where people can get in touch with Paul, where they can get in touch with
So, and again, a bit of a round of applause here for our man Ryan Dodge behind the scenes. Captain Culture has revolutionized the way the ROM is done social media. He's brought the Google Hangouts to the fore. He's brought our Twitter handles up from 0 to many thousands. Great guy all around. And his tip for me to end here is to plug the show, which is the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition and associated programs. On November 30th, we're going to have ROM Photographers of the Year. We have over 13 of our curators coming into the ROM for 5 hours on November 30th to show their best visuals. So come on into the ROM, into this space here, Earth Ranger Studio, meet our curators, see their images, see them in the field, and there's going to be a Facebook campaign, right, Ryan, where we're going to get to vote on these images, and you get to choose what ROM curator has the best photo of the year.
See you guys later.
We've got some great workshops and seminars planned in January and February with Neil and the EBC program. Get to know your DSLR camera, Instagram 101, high-end stuff, so check our website for details. Everything is at the ROM Wildlife Photographer of the Year website, so check it out. And I think that's about good. So a big round of applause for our friend Paul, who stopped by.